You're listening to WTLK Radio 88.9. Voice of the Coast, Voice of the Tide. I'm still here. Still broadcasting. Not sure how many of you are out there, but if you're awake tonight, stay with me. Something's off. It started quiet, like all strange things do. Just a delay in the tide. The charts said high tide was due at 2:16 a.m., but when I looked out the studio window, no water, not low tide either. Just nothing. I thought maybe the buoy sensors were faulty, or the current was off from the wind, or I'd read the time wrong, but I checked again. Checked 3 times. And then I called the harbor. No answer. Called again. Still no answer. Now this isn't some high-tech facility here. It's a weather shack with a radio tower and a stubborn little generator that hums, like an old man trying to remember a song. But even here, you can feel the sea. It's always there. The wind carries its voice. The building leans into its pull. You get used to that rhythm. The coming and going, the weight of it. But tonight, it's like someone turned off the tide. The shorelines just stopped breathing. At first, I thought it was a personal thing. Maybe I was overtired hearing the quiet too loud, reading tension into static. I've been working this station for years, and I've talked myself down for more than a few weird nights. But this isn't that. This is different. The air feels like it's waiting. The silence outside has teeth in it. I walked out just before the top of the hour, just to clear my head. There's a path that leads down to the beach from the back of the station. It's usually soft with sand, kind of muddy from the humidity. The air thick with brine. But tonight, it was dry. Dry and cold. The kind of cold that doesn't belong to April. The kind that doesn't belong to the coast. When I reached the beach, I stopped walking. There was no beach, no sea, just flat sand stretching out into the dark like a wound in the earth. The ocean was gone. Not receded. Gone. Pulled back as if the entire body of water had been called somewhere else. No boats in the harbor. Just hulls stranded in mud. The gulls weren't circling. No breeze. The salt had vanished from the air. Everything was wrong in ways I couldn't name at the time. I looked out across that vast dry plain and saw the lights of the oil buoys blinking out in the distance, flickering like eyes too far away to help. That's when I realized this wasn't just local. This wasn't a freak tidal event. This wasn't weather. The ocean was missing, and no one knew why. Or if they did, they weren't talking. I came back up the hill, locked the door behind me, turned off the studio lights, and sat in the dark for a long time before I could bring myself to speak. There's something about silence like this. It doesn't just sit around you. It leans in. It presses into your skin. The phones haven't rung. The network feed is silent. No alerts, no chatter, no emergency tone. Just me. And you, if you're out there. I keep thinking maybe I missed an evacuation. Maybe I slept through something. Some siren, some warning. Some helicopter hovering over the trees yelling for everyone to get out. But if that happened, why is the station still online? Why is the generator still running? Why are the systems so calm? Why hasn't anyone come? I've got the emergency bands open now. Nothing but soft hiss, a kind of white noise that almost sounds like breath. You ever listen to an empty band too long? You start hearing things in it. Voices that aren't there. Patterns that don't make sense. I'm trying not to fall into that trap, but it's hard not to imagine that something is using the silence to speak. You can hear a lot when the ocean is gone. The ground creaks differently. The air doesn't pull. At your clothes the same way. And there's no soundproofing strong enough to drown out the feeling that something enormous just stood up and walked away, leaving a crater where the sea used to be. I've lived on this coastline my whole life. I've known hurricanes. I've seen the surf tear through towns, pull up streets, roll over seawalls like they weren't even there. But at least in those moments the sea was alive. Angry, sure, but real. Present. This isn't rage. This is absence. I checked the news again a few minutes ago. All major feeds are down. The satellite images don't load. Just blank grids with buffering wheels spinning endlessly like they're waiting for something to fill them in. I got through to another station down south, one I used to intern at during college. No voice, just a looped recording on their server. Please remain indoors. Do not approach the coastline. That's all it says, over and over. The same tone, the same pauses. Not even a timestamp. Something's happened. Something's happening. I don't know if this is a moment or the beginning of one. But, either way, I'm going to stay on the air. As long as the signal holds. As long as there's power. As long as I can sit here and speak into this mic, I'll keep going. Because someone has to. If you're listening, I mean really listening, write this down. April 18th. 3:42 a.m. The oceans are gone. The world is quieter than it has ever been, and something is listening back. When I was a kid, I used to think the sea was infinite. I thought if you could just hold your breath long enough and swim in a straight line, you'd end up on the other side of the world, that there was always more water, just beyond the curve of your vision. It felt like comfort somehow, the idea that the ocean could never really end. But standing out there this morning, staring at miles of dry, cracked seabed stretching further than my eyes could follow, that idea died for good. Not slowly, not painfully, just quiet, like a candle someone forgot to light. I've spent most of the day in and out of the station. I keep walking the perimeter, checking the windows, stepping out onto the deck, looking for movement that never comes. The strange part is how normal everything still looks. The road's intact, the trees are green, the sky's a little too pale, but it's blue. It's sunny. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was just a peaceful coastal morning, until you turned toward the shore and remembered that the horizon's broken. I tried tuning into the coastal emergency frequencies again. Same as before, nothing. Just static that breathes. Not a hiss, but an inhale. Sometimes when it quiets down between pulses, I think I can hear something underneath it. Not words, not exactly. Just tones, like someone speaking from far underwater, trying to rise through the pressure, but the weight keeps folding their voice into something unrecognizable. Around noon, I finally saw someone. A woman in a yellow coat, walking across the sand with a stick like she was drawing something. I waved from the station. She didn't look up, just kept walking in wide, slow circles. I thought about going down there to speak with her, but I didn't want to leave the broadcast. And honestly, I was afraid if I stepped onto the sand again, I might not come back. She's gone now. No trace of her path, no footprints, the circles. She drew are gone too, like the sand covered itself again. I've started to wonder what's under all that silence, what lies beneath all that emptiness. The ocean's been gone for less than a day, and already people are changing. Or maybe we're just peeling back to what we were before water gave us sound. A man called in from further down the coast, a few miles south. I recognized his voice, but he didn't give his name. He said the beach by his house was completely dry too, but that wasn't what disturbed him. What got him was the birds. He said they were just sitting there, perfectly still, all facing the same direction, inland. Like the sea was behind them now and they didn't want to look back. He tried to spook one, clapped his hands, threw a stone. It didn't even blink. He walked right up to it, leaned down and whispered something. Still nothing. Then, without warning, every bird turned their head toward him. At the same time. And then they flew off. He didn't say what he whispered. He hung up after that. I've had the windows closed ever since. The generator's still humming. A miracle, considering it hasn't had maintenance in years. I keep waiting for it to sputter or overheat, but it just keeps going, steady and smooth. Almost too smooth. The kind of perfect mechanical rhythm you don't notice until it feels deliberate. The station's old, built decades ago when the coastline was busier, when maritime traffic still mattered. It was never supposed to be permanent, just a way station for weather reports and distress signals. But now, with every other broadcast I can find going silent, it's the only voice I've heard in hours, maybe longer. The weirdest part, the lack of panic. People aren't screaming. There are no sirens, no cars racing down the road, no gunshots in the distance. Just a kind of stunned patience, like the whole town's gone into quiet mourning for something it doesn't know how to name. The store down the road has its lights on. I walked past earlier, hoping to see someone. But it was empty. Cash drawers, open, doors unlocked. No sign of struggle, no signs of looting either. Just left behind, like someone called everyone away at the same time. There's a bottle of water on the counter inside, half drunk, still beaded with condensation. That's what gets to me. The small signs of life continuing up to the moment it stopped. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just frozen motion, like time itself had hiccuped and never corrected. I don't know if the ocean's coming back. I don't know if it was ever really ours to begin with, but I do know this. It didn't recede. It didn't get pulled by some lunar anomaly. This wasn't an earthquake or a sinkhole or anything that science knows how to name. It left, voluntarily, and that changes everything. You don't abandon something that isn't alive, which means the ocean had a choice, and it chose to go. The phones haven't rung again. The internet's still down. I can't get anything beyond a few shortwave static pulses that don't lead anywhere. And every hour that passes, the silence grows heavier. Not just deeper, denser. Like the world's been muffled by a hand that hasn't let go. I'm going. To stay on the air. It's what I know how to do. It's what I can do. As long as the signal holds and the mic stays hot, I'll keep talking. Because I think someone needs to remember what the water sounded like. Someone needs to remind the sky that it isn't the only thing watching. So, if you're still out there, if you still have your voice, if you're still dry but breathing, let me know. Send something. A sound. A knock. A laugh. Just anything. Because, right now, the quiet is winning, and I don't know what's waiting to take its place. I didn't sleep last night. I laid on the cot in the back room, listening to the hum of the generator and the wind that never came. Not a breeze. Not a single leaf brushed the windows. I closed my eyes and waited for fatigue to carry me down, but the stillness outside made it impossible. It was like trying to sleep with your ears underwater. Everything muffled, distant, and warped, but never fully gone. When dawn came, I watched it from the roof. The sea was still gone. That much hasn't changed. But the beach, something's happening there. I noticed it first in the sand just below the slope. Faint lines, curving in smooth, unnatural shapes. They weren't footprints, not tire tracks. I thought they might be erosion patterns from the wind, but there was no wind. So I climbed down. Closer. They're symbols. Large ones. Dozens of them. Cut deep into the sediment like they were burned there. Each about 6 feet across, carved with eerie precision, spaced exactly apart. Spirals. Crossed circles. Angular shapes that shimmer slightly if you stare at them too long. Some overlap. Some spiral outward like flowers blooming in reverse. And they're not random. They're deliberate. Intentional. Someone, or something, made them. They weren't there yesterday. Not in the morning. Not in the afternoon. I'm sure of it. I walked this entire stretch of beach. They weren't there, and now they are. The sand was dry, but the air down there was wet. Thick with mist that didn't move even when I passed through it. It clung to my skin, cold and oily, like the breath of something too close. I knelt down to touch one of the carvings, just to feel what it was, maybe trace it with my fingers, and the sand vibrated. Barely. just enough for my fingertips to notice, like it was humming, like it was alive. I didn't touch the others. I came back up the hill slowly, wiping the salt from my hands. There's a residue left behind now, not just the usual film from being near the ocean. This is denser, grainier, like whatever moisture is in the air now has to fight to stay here, like it's being borrowed. There was a notebook on the station. Desk this morning that I don't remember leaving there. Old, weathered, brown leather binding with a torn corner. I flipped it open and found a single sentence scrawled across the center page in red ink. They walked into the basin and forgot they had names. I don't know who wrote it. The handwriting doesn't match mine, but I haven't let it out of my sight since. I tried to call the mainland again today. Tried every repeater, every backup line. Still nothing. But every now and then, I catch fragments. Bits of voice that aren't part of any signal I recognize. They don't last long. Just a few words, half a breath. But I've written down every one. Don't let the tide back in. Salt belongs to memory. Listen only once. I've played the recordings back and they're empty. Blank static. But I heard them. I know I did. I think something is still speaking. Maybe not to us exactly. Maybe not in words meant for ears. But something is speaking. And whatever it's saying, the sand is listening. There's a shipwreck out on the edge of the shelf. One of the old freighters, long scuttled. I've only ever seen its mast on the sonar charts, never in person. This morning, it was there. Fully exposed, tilted on its side like a skeleton stretched out in the dirt. No rust, no damage. Just whole. Too whole. I swear it wasn't there yesterday. I took binoculars and stared at it for a long time. I kept waiting for it to feel wrong, but it didn't. That's what scared me. It looked exactly as it should. The paint was clean, the markings still legible. No sign of decay, as if it had been placed there. And that's when I realized something else. The sand around it, all of it, was dry and flat, except for the symbols, the ones that surround it like a circle of teeth. I don't think the ocean just disappeared. I think something pulled it down, took it below, and left behind a map. The salt lines aren't just marks, they're instructions. I tried to sketch one of them, just one. But my hand wouldn't stop shaking. Not like fear, like resistance. Like part of me didn't want to remember the shape after seeing it. The drawing came out wrong. It looked like an eye. I've locked the door now, not because I'm afraid of people. I haven't seen another person since the woman in the yellow coat, but because I don't know what's walking up from the basin. I keep hearing footsteps at the edge of the hill, crunching sand, soft at first, then stopping, waiting. They never come closer. Not yet, but they will, and I don't know what name they'll speak when they get here, if they speak at all. I'll stay on the air. I'll keep describing what I see. If this is some kind of message, a signal, a pattern, maybe someone out there can hear it clearer than I can. Maybe someone can piece it together before the lines finish drawing themselves. Because the sea may be gone, but it left behind its language, and the ground is reading it aloud. Something surfaced this morning. Not from the sea, there's still no sea, but from the trench. From that long black wound stretching out past the marina where the shelf gives up and the world drops away. I've watched it for days now. That trench. It doesn't shift. It doesn't breathe. But it waits. And today, it gave something back. I don't know what to call the man they carried up. Not really. They say his name is Darren, a diver, part of a salvage crew that went missing 3 weeks ago before any of this started. His vessel was listed as lost with all hands, but now he's here, dry as bone, found alone and stumbling in the silt just west of the wreck line. He's not speaking. He doesn't blink, doesn't react to sound, touch, light. The rescue team brought him in just after sunrise. 4 volunteers. No suits, Just gloves and masks and the kind of cautious silence you bring to a place where something unnatural has passed through. They said they found him kneeling, hands flat against the ground like he was listening to it, like he was praying. I went to see him. He's in the back room of the clinic now, or what used to be the clinic. It's just 2 rooms and a stretcher at this point. The windows are covered with cloth. No one wants to risk him seeing the sky. His eyes are wide open, dull gray like wet cement. His skin's covered in fine black powder, the kind of soot you'd find in a long-dead fireplace. It flakes when he moves, but only in straight lines, like whatever coated him didn't want to break the pattern. They tried cleaning him. Gently. The powder came off, but beneath it, scars. Thin, cross-hatched, etched into the flesh. Not random, not chaotic. I didn't need to look twice to recognize them. They match the salt lines on the sand. Exactly. I tried speaking to him. Nothing. But then I said one word. Not one I expected. I said remember, not even directly at him. Just part of a sentence I mumbled while thinking out loud, and his eyes flicked toward me. Just once. Then his lips moved. No sound came out, but I watched them form 3 words. The bottom remembers. That was 3 hours ago. He hasn't moved since. I came back to the station, locked the doors, and started the mic again. Because if what he said is true, if the ocean floor still remembers, then we're not just dealing with an absence. We're dealing with memory. Think the water was keeping something down, not holding it in place exactly, not like a prison, more like a blanket, a veil, a kind of soft pressure that kept old things dormant, blurred, comfortable in the dark. Now that veil is gone, and the things underneath are waking up. The sand near the harbor is cracked deeper than before. Not dry cracked, but split, like something. Below shifted, like a breath taken too sharply from under the crust. When I stepped out earlier to check the fence line, I heard it. Not a tremor, not wind. A pulse. Low and round, the kind of sound you feel in your ribs more than your ears. It's been happening every few hours, always from the same direction. Out, past the trench, I've kept the station maps spread across the desk. Depth charts, old sonar readings, oil survey scans from the 70s. I found one section, a deep column marked as non-viable for drilling. Just a void, unmapped, labeled. In red pen, geological uncertainty. That spot is now dead center of the deepest sand formations I've seen. No one ever scanned further. We've never been to the true bottom. Not really. We've built myths, of course, stories told by sailors, fishers, deep-sea crews, about shapes moving where light doesn't reach, about structures that don't match tectonic logic, about vessels that passed through and came back wrong, empty, or worse, still occupied, but silent. I used to laugh at those. Now I read them, like warning signs. A woman called in just before I went live. Her voice was shaking. Said her well went dry yesterday, and when her husband went to check it, he found the bottom collapsed. Just gone. A tunnel, wider than the casing, not wet, dry and warm. No echo. He dropped a stone down. Never heard it land. She asked me what to do. I told her to board the well shut and stay inside. I don't know if that was the right answer. I just couldn't bear the thought of her looking down that hole again. Because if the bottom remembers, it might remember her. The air smells different now, like iron and rain, but heavier. The clouds are lower than they should be, not storm clouds, just thick, colorless sheets that move without pattern. They don't respond to wind. They don't respond to temperature. I think they're watching. It feels like the sky and the earth have reversed roles. The ground is speaking, and the clouds are listening. I've been seeing shapes in the fog, too. Not people, not quite. Tall and thin, always distant. They don't walk. They tilt, lean from place to place like shadows bending over the world. I don't think they're from here. I don't think they were ever meant to be seen above sea level. That's the thing. We always assumed the ocean was the mystery, the unknown, the frontier. But now that it's gone, we're starting to realize it wasn't hiding secrets. It was the secret. And now, without it, the bottom is free to remember. I'm staying on the air. Until I can't. Until the transmitter grows cold or my voice gives out. I need to believe someone's hearing this. Someone's writing it down. Because if what we're walking into is a second beginning, someone has to carry the first ending with them. Someone has to remember that the sea didn't die. It withdrew. And when something withdraws, it means it's coming back. I had a dream last night, though I can't swear I was sleeping. The line between waking and dreaming feels thinner now. A veil soaked in salt and pulled tight across the mind. In it, I was floating. Not in water, but in air, so thick and slow, it held me like liquid. I was weightless above the empty ocean floor, looking down into the trench, into that long, dark mouth carved into the earth. There was a sound, low, steady, almost kind, like a lullaby played on rusted brass. It called to me in tones, not words, pulses of pressure that moved through my body like tides once did. Every beat pulled something out of me. Names, places, the smell of cedar and diesel, the crack of my father's boots on the dock, and I gave them up willingly, gladly, because something down there wanted to know me. I woke up on the floor of the station. The mic was still live. I don't remember what I said while I was under, but the tape's still running. I haven't played it back. I don't know if I will. There are things we aren't meant to hear in our own voices. Echoes we can't put back once they've been released. Outside, the trench pulses louder now, not constantly, intermittently, like a heartbeat slowed with intention. There's rhythm to it, a pattern. I wrote down the intervals, and it repeats every 21 minutes and 13 seconds. Exactly, I've timed it. The vibration travels up through the sand, through the pylons of the station, into the soles of my feet, and each time, it says, the same thing. I'm still here. I called it a heartbeat, but I don't think it belongs to anything alive in the way we understand it. I think it's the sound of pressure, ancient pressure, adjusting, settling into its new space now that the weight of the ocean has been lifted. A caller broke through this afternoon. First one in a while. He didn't give a name. Didn't need to. His voice had that brittle, exhausted quality I've come to recognize. The voice of someone who's seen something they can't process. He told me he'd built a parabolic microphone, trying to capture whatever was coming up from the trench. Said he caught tones. Not human, not seismic, deeper than whale song, wider than anything natural. He ran them through a spectrogram and saw shapes. Geometric, precise. He didn't know what they meant, but he played a sample over the line. I only heard 2 seconds before the audio cut out, but I saw something in those 2 seconds. The windows of the station fogged. My breath caught in my throat, and just for a moment the generator faltered. A single stutter, like it skipped a beat. I don't know where the caller is now. The line hasn't reconnected. I keep hearing fragments in the drain pipes. No water, no echo, but sound nonetheless. It doesn't bounce. It flows, upward. A low gurgling that shifts into tone if you listen too long. I caught myself humming it earlier. I didn't mean to. It was just there, in my chest, waiting to come out. I stopped myself. Barely, the sounds spreading too. Not just the trench, not just the pipes. Radios across town have started turning on by themselves. AM, FM, doesn't matter. All of them hum, all of them pulse, and sometimes they speak. Not full sentences, just syllables, just the edge of language, like the beginning of a thought. a whisper forming in a mouth bigger than a continent. One of the radios said my name, not the one I use on air, my real name, the one I haven't spoken since I left the mainland, the one nobody here should know. It said it softly, lovingly, like it missed me. I turned it off and unplugged it, but it kept humming. The next time it spoke, it said a date. Tomorrow's date. I don't know what happens then. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. The tide hasn't returned. Not even a whisper of surf. But the trench is fuller now. I don't mean water, I mean sound. A kind of density to the silence around it. When I walked down this morning, just to see, just to listen, the air near the edge was thicker, harder to breathe. My ears rang, and my vision shimmered at the corners like heat rising from pavement. Something is preparing, or maybe revealing itself. There's a phrase I keep seeing. Spray painted on walls, scratched into dock planks, etched into the sand, echoes from the drain. It doesn't make sense. Not yet. But the repetition is deliberate, intentional. The phrase shows up too often to be coincidence, and always near places where water once moved. Wells, storm gutters, broken sprinkler lines, even the grooves in the dirt where old creeks used to run. Echoes from the drain. I think the phrase is a warning, or a countdown, or a spell. I've started talking to myself more, not in fear, not in madness, but as an anchor, to keep myself rooted in sound that belongs to me. It helps. A little, but not completely, because even my own voice is beginning to sound unfamiliar. There's a delay sometimes, a moment of hesitation between thought and speech, as if the words are being approved before I say them, or translated, or watched. I don't know who's listening anymore, but I know they're there, and they know I know. I'm going to keep broadcasting until the last second, until the echo becomes voice, and the voice becomes breath, and the breath becomes the sea again, because I think the drain isn't empty. It's never been empty. It's only ever been waiting to speak. I went down to the shoreline again today. Not out of bravery, not even out of curiosity, just restlessness. The kind that creeps into your bones after too long indoors, too long listening to your own breath compete with static. The silence in here has its own texture now. Soft, warm, almost inviting. I needed to be reminded of what the world still looked like. What's left of it. The sand is hard beneath my boots. No give, no softness. It's like walking across a scar. The surface has started to crust over. Not with salt, but something finer. White-gray dust that kicks up in little clouds if you move too fast. When I crouched to feel it with my hands, it clung to my skin like pollen, and the shells are everywhere. Thousands of them, arranged in careful lines that stretch up the beach, like ancient text, curling through each other like calligraphy. They weren't placed by tide. There's no tide, and I've lived here long enough to know what drift patterns look like. These are too deliberate, too clean. They form spirals, rows, mirrored shapes that ripple outward from a central point. Just below the bluff, I followed them. Half a mile down the beach, where the land folds into a shallow basin, I found something else. A structure. Not a building, not quite. More like a skeleton of one. Ribs of driftwood, bleached and dry, arched into a low dome. Not random scrap. The wood was bound with salt-crusted wire, wrapped so tightly it cut into the bark. Someone built this, or something did. Inside were more shells, arranged into the shape of a body. No bones, just the outline. A head, a torso, arms curled inward like it died embracing itself, and around the throat a ring of dark stones, perfectly round, wet even though everything else was dry. I didn't step inside, didn't touch anything. I just stood there, staring at it, feeling like I'd stumbled into a church built for something older than God. As I turned to leave, I heard a noise. Faint, soft, barely more than a sigh. Not from the dome, from beneath it. A low exhale, steady and deep as if the beach had lungs. And then the shells shifted. Not all of them. Just one line, maybe 20 shells long, rolling over in perfect unison, as if something beneath them stirred in its sleep. I ran. All the way, back to the station. I haven't left since. The world is quieter now, but it's not dead. That's what I keep trying to explain. This isn't decay. This isn't ruin. It's replacement. Something is waking up. Something that watched from the bottom and waited for silence. And now that the ocean's gone, now that the sound is gone, it can rise. I'm not alone anymore either. I see people sometimes walking the sand. Never close. Never more than silhouettes on the horizon. They move slowly, deliberately. Always away from town, toward the deeper scars. They never look back. I think some of them are people I knew, or used to be. They walk like they've heard something I haven't, or maybe like they stopped needing to hear it all. I got a note slipped under the door last night. I didn't hear anyone approach, didn't hear the hinges move or the latch click. Just found it there when I went to refill the coffee pot. Folded paper, damp, no handwriting I recognized. Just a single phrase, carefully printed. It remembers your shape. That's all. I haven't thrown it away. It's pinned to the corkboard, beside the weather maps. It feels like a truth, even if I can't understand it yet. The symbols on the beach are growing more complex. They connect now. Lines stretching between the shell spirals, weaving together into constellations too tight to walk through. I watched a gull land in the center of one this morning. It stood there for a moment, perfectly still, then let out. A single sharp cry, and its wings snapped back. Not broken, folded, like closing a book. It didn't move after that. I couldn't bring myself to get close. I buried it. I don't know why. It just felt like the right thing to do. Like a gesture from the old world, before we started unraveling into this new one. The trench pulses have slowed today. Fewer, but deeper. I can feel them in my teeth now. Like pressure, dropping before a storm. It's not just the sand that's changing. It's the air, the light, the shape of shadows. Things that should fall one way, now bend another. And there's a sound beneath it all. Not the hum. That's gone quiet. This is newer. Lower, a clicking, like shells tapping together in deep water. Happens most at dusk. That in-between hour when the sky doesn't know if it should burn or fade. The clicks come in patterns. 3, pause. 2, pause, then 1. And silence. And then again. Sometimes closer. Sometimes beneath the floorboards. I haven't opened the crawl space. I don't think I will. There are things better left unacknowledged. I'm still broadcasting. Still trying to speak plainly. Still trying to name what we're seeing, even as the names slip away. But it's harder now. Not because I'm afraid, but because some part of me wonders if language was part of the problem. If we named the ocean wrong, if we thought it was ours when it was only ever borrowed, and if it's taken itself back, maybe we should stop trying to describe what it's become. Maybe the shells aren't a warning. Maybe they're a script, and maybe someone, something, is reading it. Aloud. There's a boat in the middle of town. Not a small one. Not a dinghy or a fishing vessel. A trawler. 40 feet, rusted blue, its hull still wet somehow. I found it wedged between the diner and the bait shop this morning, like it had been. Placed there gently. No drag marks, no crash. Just sitting, perfectly upright, on pavement that's never touched seawater. The registration on the side matches a ship listed as sunk 4 years ago off the coast of Argentina. That can't be a coincidence. I walked around it, touching the paint, feeling the cold metal. It smelled like algae and diesel, like the ghost of the ocean itself had followed it inland. I opened the cabin. No one inside. No sign of habitation, just damp footprints on the stairs, not going down, not going up, just there. A logbook sat open on the console. Only one page was legible. It read, "We followed the voice too far. It wanted to be seen. It wanted to be remembered. But when we looked, it looked back. And then nothing." The ink stopped mid-sentence. I brought the page back with me. I'm looking at it now. It hasn't dried. The ink still glistens, hours later. I'm starting to think time doesn't move the same way near these things. That when the sea left, it didn't just take water with it. It took sequence, direction, continuity. I keep forgetting things. Names, mostly. Simple ones. I couldn't remember the word for window earlier. I stood there, pointing at it, mouth open, knowing what I meant, but unable to pull it out. It finally came back, but not easily, and not with trust. A caller this morning said her son's been talking in his sleep. He's 6. He keeps saying the same sentence. I don't know which sky's ours. She tried recording it. The file won't save. She plays it back, and all she gets is the sound of running water. But they don't have plumbing anymore. Their pipes went dry days ago. She asked me what it meant. I didn't answer her, because I don't know either. I've been rereading the older logs, the ones from decades past. This station kept meticulous records. Tide charts, weather maps, incident reports from the fishing vessels. Most of it's dry reading, routine. But in the back of one binder, I found a sealed envelope. No label. Just a name I didn't recognize. For when it leaves. Inside, a single paragraph typed in clean, serif font. If the ocean forgets us, we will not survive the forgetting. Do not try to remind it. Let it move through memory like a god walking backward. Bury your names. Cover your mirrors. Speak only what the wind gives back. I've read that sentence 15 times and it still doesn't feel real. But deep down, in some place I can't reach easily anymore, I believe it. I believe we were never meant to be remembered by the sea. And now that it's trying, now that it's dredging up pieces of what we were, it's breaking things. Found another message on the sand this afternoon. This one wasn't written. It was sung, a melody, simple and sad, made from wind moving through sea glass strung up in the skeletal frame of a ruined boardwalk. Each note played in perfect succession, as though something below was breathing out through every hanging shard. It played 3 times, and then stopped. When I tried to write it down, my hand cramped, seized, like the motion itself offended something, listening. I crumpled the page and threw it into the bin. The station's getting colder, too. Not because of weather. That's stayed the same. But there's a cold inside the walls now. A stillness that lingers in corners. I swear I saw condensation on the inside of the light bulbs earlier, like the heat was retreating, pulled backward through the wires into some invisible drain. I can't explain that. I won't pretend to. But it's real. There are no waves now, but the tide is still moving, just differently. It's a tide of attention, a pressure you can feel in the air, as though the sky is bending to stare at you from behind itself. And in dreams, if you can still dream, there's water. Always water, but not the water we remember. Upside-down oceans that drip upward into ink-black voids, boats that row without oars, voices that call you from beneath the seabed, asking questions in tones you used to recognize. What were you before the flood? Do you still belong to your body? Is this your name, or just the shape of one? I don't answer anymore. I just wake up, and turn on the mic and try to stay ahead of the forgetting, because something is rewriting us. Slowly, gently, not like a knife, like a lullaby, and we won't notice until the words we speak no longer match the thoughts in our heads. That's what the ocean held back. Not monsters, not gods. But the truth that forgetting is contagious, and we've all started coughing. It came. Back tonight. Not all of it, not even most, but something. Something that moves like a tide but isn't water. No waves, no current. Just a slow, crawling mass that reached the shore just after sunset, and kept going. I was watching from the roof like I always do now. The sky was pink and bruised, the kind of twilight that doesn't fade so much as congeal. And then, just beyond the edge of the trench, I saw a shape cresting the sand. It looked like a fog bank at first. Low, dense, rolling in slow pulses, as if it were breathing across the ground, but it wasn't fog, it was foam. Not the kind that dances along the surf or clings to a rocky cove. This foam was thick, matte white, uneven. It moved against the wind, against gravity, up and over dunes without losing speed. It made no sound, not even a hush, and it left no wetness behind. I radioed out. No answer. Then I ran down to the station's southern bluff, where the cliffs give a better view of the old docks. That's where I saw it clearly. The foam pouring up the slope of the harbor like spilled paint, wrapping itself around anything in its path. It reached the base of the lighthouse. And then, the light stopped turning. That old light has run on solar backup since before I got here. I've never seen it fail. Not once. But as soon as the foam touched the base, the lens shuddered, spun once more, and died. The silence after that was different. Not quieter, more complete. As if sound itself had been absorbed. I came back inside, locked the doors, boarded the vents. It's not water. I can't say that enough. It moves like intention, like memory, like the thought of the ocean if you removed all the life and kept only the shape, and it's growing. Slow, yes, but relentless. It doesn't soak, doesn't pool. It presses, fills space, wraps itself around corners and fixtures and fences, the way smoke might move if it had weight, and when it touches something, that thing changes. I watched the foam swallow a piece of dock debris, just a splintered board no longer than my arm. When it re-emerged, it was intact, whole. The wood gleamed like fresh varnish, but the grain was wrong, too smooth, too symmetrical. It was a copy, perfect in shape, but not in soul. The foam is rewriting. A caller, first one all night, said she saw her reflection in the surface of it, that it smiled before she did, that it looked older, not aged, deeper, as if it remembered things she hadn't lived. She said it opened its mouth like it was going to speak. Then the line dropped. It hasn't come back. The radio on my desk buzzes sometimes, just under the normal static. A high-pitched stutter, like something struggling to form words out of light. I've recorded it, played it back. The waveform isn't human. It loops in geometric patterns. Triangles, spirals, fractals. Like it's not a voice, but a map spoken aloud. And every hour or so in between pulses, I hear the foghorn. Except there are no ships. There is no sea. And the horn plays the wrong tone. Low and slow and descending, like it's not warning of something coming, but mourning, something that left. I've watched the foam reach the edge of the tree line now. The pines don't resist. They fold, silently. They don't burn, don't rot. They just sink into themselves, and then vanish. But it doesn't take everything. Sometimes it leaves behind shapes, long pieces of driftwood, white stones arranged, in spirals, Mirrors, cracked and upright, pointed toward the trench. I haven't touched any of them. I think they're offerings, or warnings, or both. There was something written on the side of the generator this morning, etched into the metal, with perfect lines. I didn't do it. I wouldn't. Not with what's going on. It said, "You drowned us first." I don't know what it means. But it feels personal. Like the foam isn't just some alien tide reclaiming territory. It's memory, flooding backward. And we are the debris. A friend used to say that the ocean was the planet's subconscious, that if we ever emptied it, we'd see what the world had been trying not to remember. I think she was right, and I think we're starting to remember too. But it's not coming back as it was. It's coming back the way a dream comes back hours after. Waking, jumbled, rearranged, haunted by unfamiliar details that feel too familiar. I looked at the foam again just before coming on air. It had reached the edge of the old radio tower foundation, and in its reflection, I saw stars. Not the ones above. Different ones. Falling. Inward. I don't think the sea is returning. I think something else is using its shape, and it's learning how to walk in it. I found writing on the cliff face this morning. Not carved, not painted. Grown. Thin, white threads like veins, branching out across the rock in a sprawling script that shimmers faintly when the sun hits it. At first, I thought it was lichen. Some kind of accelerated fungal bloom. But when I touched it, gently, with the back of a gloved hand, it was warm, and it pulsed. The words weren't in English. Not at first, but the longer I stared, the more I understood. Not because they changed, because something in me gave way, like a door opening in a part of my mind I hadn't used since childhood. They said, "You drained us first." And then, just beneath that, "We remember what you buried." I staggered back, not from pain, from recognition. There was a tone in those words, beneath the meaning, like music held between the letters. I could feel it resonating in my teeth, in the fillings, in the old fracture in my wrist, the places where my body held stories. That's how I know it was real. The foam hasn't moved much since yesterday. It's settled now, lapping gently at the foundation of the station. It doesn't press against the door. It waits, as if it's patient, or perhaps as if it's thinking. I hear it sometimes, at night, not with my ears, not exactly. In my sleep, or the space that used to be sleep, I dream of sounds rising up through the floorboards. Not voices, vibrations, like words spoken, through the structure of the world itself. Words without breath. And behind them, something vast shifts its weight, not approaching, positioning, as if it's preparing to be seen. I haven't turned on the outside floodlights in 2 days, not because they're broken. They still flicker when I test the circuits, but every time I do, I get the sense I've interrupted something, like shining light on a stage mid-rehearsal. Whatever's happening out there, it doesn't want to be watched until it's ready. So I wait, and I listen. More people have disappeared, changed. There's no violence, no screams, no trails, just absence. Rooms left undisturbed, food half-eaten, shoes placed neatly by doors, like they stood up mid-thought and walked out into the white. Some leave notes, most don't. The ones who do. The ones who know something is ending. They write the same thing. It isn't underneath the ocean. The ocean was underneath it. I think we built the world backward. We assumed land was permanent, that the sea was the surface. But the more this place unwraps itself, the more I believe the ocean was just a thin layer of skin, stretched across something older, deeper, something that's now exhaling for the first time in centuries. A woman came to the station today. First person I've seen up close in almost a week. She didn't speak, just stood outside, ankle deep in the foam, eyes fixed on the signal tower. I opened the window, asked her if she needed help. She didn't look at me, but she raised one hand, slowly, and pointed to the ground beneath her feet. Then she smiled. Not warm, not hostile, just sure. And then she sank. Not quickly, not like she fell. She lowered into the foam like a stone through deep water. No splash. No resistance. Just silence. I haven't seen her since. I think she was showing me how, not as an offer, as a promise. The cliff is cracking, not breaking. Not collapsing. Cracking. Thin. Dark lines crawling up from the basin like vines in reverse. They don't spread out, they converge, like they're being pulled towards something, or like something beneath them is beginning to reach. I dropped a stone into one of the cracks today. I never heard it land. I don't think it fell. I think it was taken. I've been thinking about the word underneath. What it really means. We use it to describe depth, position. But what if it's a hierarchy? Not just location, authority. What if the things beneath us were never below us, just waiting? Waiting for the sea to leave. Waiting for silence. Waiting for permission. The station lights flicker more often now. Sometimes. They don't flicker back on. Sometimes I sit in the dark, microphone live, just breathing. Just sending out the rhythm of a body still refusing to be still. If you're listening, if your voice still belongs to you, hold on. Because the ground beneath our feet is not ours. It never was, and what sleeps under the sea has begun to turn. The sea has returned, but it's not the sea. Not as we knew it. It came in without warning. No rumble, no roar, just presence. Sudden and whole, like a forgotten word reappearing mid-sentence. One moment the trench was still, the next it overflowed. Water, if that's still what we can call it, poured in from nowhere. From beneath, from the cracks in the cliffs, from the drain of the world itself. It didn't fall. It rose, like a breath held too long, finally exhaled. I watched it climb, not with panic. With stillness. There was no escape to consider, no warning to give. The station sits high above the basin, above what used to be shoreline. But elevation didn't matter. The return didn't follow gravity. It followed memory. It knew where it had been, and it reclaimed every inch. The foam didn't recede. It melted, dissolved into the black swell and left behind nothing. No trace. No residue, just a wet silence so deep it felt alive. The kind of quiet you don't break without consequence. I tried speaking. The words stuck, not out of fear, but reverence. You don't interrupt something ancient when it's waking up. The water glows now, faint, pulsing light beneath the surface, not reflection. Something internal, like it's dreaming aloud, and there are shapes in it. Not swimming, drifting, rising. They don't look like us, but they echo us, like statues built from partial memory, elongated limbs, hollow torsos, faces molded not from flesh but from how we felt. Sadness, awe, surrender. One of them reached the edge of the bluff this afternoon. It didn't climb, it stood. Rose vertically, water streaming from its sides like silk. It looked up at the tower, at me, and tilted its head. I don't know if it saw me or if it remembered me. I stayed inside after that. I haven't turned off the mic, because something tells me this is the last chance I'll have to speak with the sea instead of into it. I don't know what's coming, but I know we're not at the center of it. We never were. We built our cities on sand and called ourselves permanent. We filled the oceans with maps and stories and trash and told ourselves we understood them. But the water was never listening to us. It was waiting for us to go quiet, And now, we have. I hear fewer voices on the air, no distress calls, no search requests, just the occasional whisper, a murmur, a name spoken like prayer, then forgotten again. Some part of me believes those voices aren't real anymore. They're echoes, faint recordings of what we used to be. There's still one thing left to do. The door is open now. The tide has returned, and it waits just outside the station. Not lapping, not pounding, just still, full, whole. It remembers where I live, and I think it's time I remember where I came from. I'm taking the recorder, not out of obligation, out of hope, that maybe something of this voice will remain. Not because it's special, but because it resisted. Because it spoke, even when silence asked politely. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it isn't, but the tide is calling, and I am not afraid. Not anymore. This is WTLK Coastal Broadcast. Final transmission. If you're listening, truly listening, let the world remember you. Sing one last sound before the water speaks, because when it does, it won't stop, and it won't ask again.